This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Art is the great communicator, and it is my firm belief that artists are a gateway to a deeper truth about the human condition. Valeria Teles interviews Alex Rudin, a multimedia artist and illustrator, founder of Rudin Studios, and speaker. Alex Rudin is an NYC-based multimedia artist and illustrator focused on social justice and abstract political theory. In 2019, she founded her creative studio, Rudin Studios, LLC. Alex's artwork is narratively focused with a strong emphasis on expressive portraiture. The majority of her work attempts to comment on the complexities of the human experience through stylized portraiture and anecdotal commentary. Alex's focus lies in uncovering and expressing the truths of what it is like to live in modern America. She is currently focused on creating work to galvanize action around social and political issues. This year, Alex has partnered with organizations such as Women for Biden-Harris 2020, Women for the Win, Friends Vote Together, and Her Bold Move, among numerous other female-led political organizations, in addition to working in the human rights space with organizations such as Article3.org, the Representation Project, and the Sam and Devorah Foundation for Trans Youth. Rudin's work has been featured in publications such as Grit Daily, The Female Lead, Yahoo, and US Today, to name a few. Alex's fine artwork has been shown in both solo and group expositions in New York City, Great Neck, Delaware, Philadelphia, and the Hamptons. Meet Alex at rudinstudios.com and alexrudin.com. Here's the interview with Alex Rudin.
In your own words, who is Alex Rudin?
I am an activist artist that focuses on social justice, progressive movements, and healing through artwork, whether it be mental health, eating disorders, or just everyday struggles. I really try to represent human emotion through portraiture and anecdotal commentary and attempt to hit a viewer in a place that kind of knocks them out of their everyday moments to focus on these deep emotions and the ineffable qualities of art and viewing it.
It's really wonderful what you do. So before I ask you more questions about it, talk to me about the inspiration to do what you do today.
Well, I've always been a very emotional person, and I've also always been a very creative person. And I think that these two things were bound to come together at some point in my life. I think also that I have had incredible creative inspirations and support within my family throughout my life. You know, my grandfather was an illustrator. My mother's a designer. My uncle is in the arts. My father's he builds things. And so just being around that my entire life really was impactful towards my creative abilities and also interests. And then on top of that, I struggled with various issues growing up, such as an eating disorder and mental health issues and depression and anxiety. And I think that something that was a very natural outlet was for me to start making work about my own mental processes and help heal myself through the work that I do.
How do you describe this healing process and relationship when it comes to art, painting, illustrations, doing what you do?
Yeah, I think that for me, there are kind of two directions.
Yeah.
I find great comfort and support when I'm in the studio myself, when I'm actually making the work. I find that incredibly therapeutic itself. I've always said that the studio is kind of the only place I feel like the shackles of my eating disorder or my struggles fall by the wayside, and I feel truly free in my ability to express myself or create what comes from the heart. And then I think another aspect of that is the really healing power of making the invisible visible. And that is something I feel like really translates well into making work about mental health, because that's something that's such an issue with mental health, is that people stigmatize it or don't understand it because you can't see it. And I think that when people, or at least for me, I can talk about myself, but when I objectify my feelings and almost place value in terms of like make them an object almost, I'm able to better understand it, analyze it, work through it, because it doesn't hold the same power anymore. It becomes something.
How do you define mental health, Alex? From your perspective, what does it look like to be mentally healthy?
I think for me, mental health is an ongoing process towards growth and self-actualization and realization. I think that it's very hard to, take a snapshot of somebody and, in one moment in time and say that is mental health. I think that it's a process and it's a journey. And as long as the end goal is to better yourself and grow, then that to me is the effort to consistently work on your mental health.
Do you see that as a destination in a way? Let's say one day we'll get to a point where we are perfectly healthy in every way, maybe not physically, but emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and even spiritually. And do you connect that spirituality to this level of self-understanding and realization?
Yeah, I think that I don't necessarily believe that there is an end goal. I think that, life is so much more than this journey on this one particular earth, this one, these dimensions that we live in. I think there's so much more to our experience than that we're not consciously aware of. So I think that as long as you're continuously trying to better yourself, I don't think there's any end in sight, and I don't think that, I also I personally I don't like to buy into the idea of perfection as something attainable or that you should be working towards, because I think that in general, your idea of perfection is most likely somebody else's idea of perfection. And that is not something that's good for your soul or your journey in the long run.
Perfection, destinations are words that I don't use for sure. I do use unconditional love or unconditional, let's say anything, unconditional living existence. What do you think about that? Is that something that is realistic even to pursue as a practice, unconditional love or unconditional living?
Yeah, I think that everything that's a personal journey is something worth pursuing. I think that I don't generally like to prescribe or kind of proselytize my ideologies towards other people. But I think that the idea of being unconditional has a lot to do with being empathetic and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes or simply caring. And I think that is a goal that everybody should be working on. And, for me, the opposite of empathy is apathy. And I believe that apathy is almost one of the worst things that you can have, whether it's towards yourself or other people. And so to go in maybe the direct opposite of apathy would be empathy and unconditional love, and kind of that idea that, I always say that I really look forward to living in a world where people reach out their hand to help their neighbor rather than point at them and say something that makes them different or other them. And I think that has to do with unconditional love as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It is the idea of non-judgment. So we just navigate this reality coming from a peaceful place, I would say, of inner peace, where it's okay for everything to be exactly the way they are. It has to start with us, though, and that's something that I write about and I talk about, unconditional self-love. Because if we don't do the work within ourselves, then it's impossible even to project that reality out there.
Right.
What is your understanding of self-love as of today, Alex?
Well, I've had a long journey with self-love, I would say. As I mentioned earlier, I struggled most of my life with an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And with that comes challenges when it comes to self-love and, acceptance, whether it's acceptance for the struggle that you're going through or just your body in general. And I think that going through recovery, I've been in the world of, you say recovery for 6 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And it is still an incredible challenge. And it's something that I find great difficulty in.
Yeah.
But I think that I have learned through my work, in another way that, my work has been healing towards to me, is helping me understand that my value doesn't come from my body in itself, but I gain confidence in my work and the messages that I, send through my work and what the viewers get from my work. And that has helped me gain confidence and in turn, helped me love myself a lot more without placing a ton of, weight, no pun intended, on my body. It's been a journey for sure. And I'm very excited to continue it. There's no question for me that my journey is going to be long. But as we talked about earlier, there's no end for that either to me.
It's really honorable and beautiful, this openness, just being open to it all, however it is happening. So That's what I see in you, just being open to the journey, if it is one. But that's beautiful. Right.
I'm sorry. I was going to say that I think that for me, it's something that I've learned about called radical acceptance, that idea that, you have to accept what is, reality and what is happening and move on and digest it and be able to just accept that. And I think that that is a super instrumental piece of self-love and learning how to accept the world around you.
Yeah.
And I think that radical acceptance has been something that's been really intrinsic into me, like making work about this stuff for sure, that, this is true, but I may have all these feelings about it, but I can get those out and make something positive and helpful for others out of this.
Accepting the unacceptable. You use the word resistance in one of your paintings or illustrations. Respect my existence or expect my resistance. So talk to me for a moment about that kind of resistance.
Well, I think that for me, it's important to note that that piece itself was made in reference to the Black Lives Matter protests this summer.
Yeah.
So they were not as mentally health skewed, but it was actually a quote that was on a sign at the protest that I thought was really, really impactful. I think that piece in itself was a reaction. I've been doing a lot of social justice work, as I said, and this was kind of the beginning of that. And, prior to that, I had been making really only work about mental health. So I think that this piece aids in the synthesis of the two. About, social justice is also about emotions and about fairness and equality and love. Yeah, I think that piece gave me the opportunity to kind of address both things, but also stay very true and respectful to the movement and what the movement was trying to achieve by not inserting my own narrative into the piece.
Wow, that's another topic in itself. The idea of the reality the way it is now, and with the Black Lives Matter, and then you have the need to create some sort of not resistance, but it's a standing for what we believe in, what matters, right? What is true to us. And I think that's very, very important. But then it's interesting, like if we are able to hold both still not resist within, come from a place of inner peace, and at the same time do what we have to do, see what the options we have to change the reality for a more peaceful one, then it's valid. It's beautiful too. Why not, since we're here?
Absolutely.
There's another one that relates to that is the, I think Martin Luther King, that's the one, another illustration. Yeah. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So that kind of sums up that in a way. Beautifully.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's go back to the healing topic in arts and healing, which everything's connected anyway. There's nothing disconnected. What are some of the misconceptions we have about healing and recovery, Alex, from your perspective?
I think that something that is not understood enough is that healing is not a linear path. Not everybody has this, there's no prescribed path for healing when it comes to mental health or personal growth. It's all subjective, and it's about finding the best route for yourself.
We are so unique, right, and different.
I was going to say, and that's the valuable part of all of us, is that we are unique. So to cater to that is the most respectful thing to do for yourself.
It's kind of so challenging for me to understand that perspective, a very judgmental perspective, the non-acceptance of what is different, because we see that in nature. Everything's so different, diverse and beautiful and perfect at the same time, and imperfect at the same time. Do you try to understand that kind of mentality or way of thinking, or you just focus on what you do and how you do it, on healing and positivity in art?
I think that on a personal level, I definitely think about that because, I don't feel like I was in a necessarily, I'm not talking about my family in particular, but in general, like nurturing environment when it comes to talking about your feelings or mental health. Even in school, I was lucky that I was able to get a therapist when I needed one at an early age. And I had parents that were very respectful and understanding about, everybody's journey towards mental health. But I think that, can you repeat the question?
Because we hear a lot that it's important to focus on what we want and not the opposite. So I'm wondering if you focus on that.
Sorry about that. I think that through my work, I find it really important to focus on positivity. Yeah. But I think that on a personal level, I think about why is it that people don't understand, or why is it that people have such short fuses for people who are struggling or have no empathy or sympathy, simply for people who are going through issues. And I really feel like in most cases, the answer is lack of education. I think that children are not taught, one, how to deal with their feelings, that feelings are okay and acceptable and necessary, that people struggle and it's okay to struggle and it's okay to need help. And I think that if students were taught about mindfulness in school and about these different variations within our mental health from a young age, then people will be much more accepting. I think that when life, judgment comes into play and people get older, with lack of experience or ignorance or just not simply being around this type of conversation, then that's what leads to misinformation and lack of sympathy.
I love when you say that, feeling the feeling is learning how to understand them. And I wonder what do you do? What is your advice, a suggestion how to deal with negative feelings, anger or frustration, shame? Talk to me for a moment about that, Alex.
Yeah. Well, for me, I create. I also think it's really important to sit and feel your feelings. Tolerating your emotions is key in understanding your emotions. And I think that being vulnerable in moments of discomfort or pain is like the greatest tool for transformation in itself. So, growth happens in times of discomfort. So understanding that and recognizing that and embracing that will not only help you get past this moment, but grow and become better from it. And then, as I said, I turn towards creativity to really flush out my emotions and expel what I'm feeling. So I'm not going to say to everybody, pick up a paintbrush, but you like to write poetry. If you like to play the guitar, any kind of creative expression will invariably help you and make you feel better. I really believe that.
Yeah, like you said before, it would be very helpful to start as children, because then we are well equipped, right, to navigate our own feelings and be confident enough to be vulnerable, because that is not something that is easy to do for most of us. I love that component, though, that if we can learn to do that, just be vulnerable in a sense of just being true, isn't it? Being true to ourselves. I'm feeling this way, and I'm courageous enough to talk about.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part. Yeah, and I think that that's what people really struggle with is the idea of being vulnerable or not, or being fallible almost, maybe not being this idea of perfect or strong. But I think that being vulnerable is actually that, is being strong.
I agree 1,000,000,000%. I absolutely love that. That's the end of shame, the end of conflict within. I mean,
Right.
From my perspective, it has been. When you say tolerate your emotions, that can lead us to understanding them. That's an interesting phrase. I never heard it that way. Can you give me an example? Can you describe what it looks like to tolerate our own negative emotions?
Yeah, I think that tolerating your emotions I actually think it's a very parallel experience to viewing art. So it's the idea of sitting in discomfort
Right.
and allowing those feelings to just be there, to not push them away, to not distract yourself with something. So, if I was feeling bad about a fight I had with my friend, rather than turning to vices that I have or devices that I have,
Yeah.
getting distracted with technology, which is such an easy thing to do these days,
True.
or distracting myself, with I'm not a drinker, but I can say for somebody else drinking, maybe that is not a productive way to deal with these feelings, because they will, well, one, you never know if they can get amplified or if they can get subjugated because of them, because of these actions. So actually allowing yourself to sit in the moment and be uncomfortable and tolerate those feelings allows you to, one, gain familiarity with such feelings, and therefore the next time it comes around, it will not be as difficult. It's kind of an idea of exposure therapy.
Yeah.
So the more you feel it, the less it impacts you.
Right.
So I think that and it's easier said than done. Tolerating your feelings is a really difficult thing to do. I think a normal reaction would be, how do I feel better?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
just implore maybe people who are listening to, instead of doing that, maybe sit in for 5 minutes and just feel it. Don't try and make it better. Just feel it.
And I love what you said. Even if it is for 5 minutes, doesn't have to be for too long, but stay there. Because, we have this urge, all of us, to just be better and make it better, just run from this moment to the next, not being present with what is present, which is, to me, life is all about.
Yeah, and I think it's almost a little bit like, if for people who are, my father is a physician. He's a surgeon, so very body minded and focused.
Yeah.
So if there's someone listening that's more like that, and if I were talking to my dad about something like this, I would say it's akin to stretching your muscles. They tell you to hold it there when it burns a little bit, and that's when your muscles stretch further, and that's when you get the results. So it's the same thing with emotions. You have to exercise your emotions and then stretch them, and tolerance and sitting in discomfort is that stretch. It's that burn. But next time, it's not going to burn so much.
Are emotions and feelings the same to you, or they're somehow different?
No, I don't think they're the same.
Right.
I think they're different. I think one is more innate than the other. I think I don't necessarily know which one, to be honest. I think that feelings are innate. I think that feelings are something that happens, you hurt my feelings. If my boyfriend says something mean to me, or that hurts my feelings, and maybe it's not mean, but hurts my feelings, and I interpret it that way, then that's a gut reaction. That is something that you can't control, but you can control how you deal with it. And I think that is where the emotions come in, where you can say, oh, I'm going to react this way and have this emotion towards that comment. So I think one is intrinsic. I think one is a choice.
That is so interesting, the way you naturally kind of talked about this, feelings and emotions, in a way that is very, from a psychological point of view, like professionals that I have interviewed, that's exactly what they said. Their feelings are just, that's very natural. That's how it's supposed to be. The body, it's designed to feel. Now, the interpretation of those feelings, the labeling and all, and the grasping, holding on to them and making something else, that's called emotions. And we have all these names for it. So it's interesting that you said that too, without even...
Well, I've been in therapy for a long time.
Let me know when you are ready to write your book about these things. That'll be interesting. Art, creativity, and emotional healing or feelings.
I love that.
Well, if you ever do, yeah, I would love to know.
I definitely will.
That'll be fun. And I have an open question for you about the purpose of life. What do you think the purpose of the human experience is, Alex?
Oh, I think the purpose, I mean, on some great level, I think there is no purpose, and that's purpose enough.
Yeah.
That there's freedom in the openness and vastness and the possibility. But I personally, ascribe to myself, I actually read today that Pablo Picasso quote that says, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away.
Yeah.
And I think that hits a few notes that I believe that, you should spend your life connecting, doing good, making other people happy or better or more secure or comfortable. I think, civic engagement in a for lack of a better term is essential.
Yeah.
I think that it's important to leave this place better than when you came here in your own way. Through me, that's through my work and the art, and that I get to, work with incredible organizations that impact real change and enact real change. And I think that for me personally, my purpose is creativity, is making art, is contributing to aesthetic force in a way, which is an idea that a piece of art can hit a viewer in a certain way that shifts their critical awareness around a certain issue. So I want to change minds. I want to challenge people. I want people to sit in reflection and introspection and become something else because of my work.
I love your wisdom and I love your intention. It's beautiful, everything, what you do, how you do it, where you express yourself, the authenticity, or just being natural, really. We use that word a lot, authenticity. I love the idea of being natural, just being ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing, is just be yourself, like we said before. And that's the gift that you will add. That's your purpose, is being yourself.
Yes, right. Beautifully said. Yeah, that's your purpose, to be yourself. I love that. Wow. I love that. I love that. Love 1,000 times. Yes.
Make a shirt. Yeah.
That's a tough one a lot of times. For me, has been creating boundaries, saying no, because I don't want to hurt people. That has been a challenge. For you, how do you deal with that? Like saying no, how easy is that for you?
How's probably not the easiest.
Right.
I really care about pleasing other people. And I'm not going to say that I don't, but I also know, I think I'm pretty good at prioritizing and making sure that I do what I need to do for myself regardless. So I think that's something that I've set in place in my life, is really only having people in my life that respect what I do and understand the limitations that I might have because of the line of work that I do, or just my limitations or boundaries, if you will, as a person. And I think I've crafted a really amazing, family, chosen and not chosen, that understand that I require X, Y, and Z as boundaries, and I can provide X, Y, and Z as, things in our relationship. So I think that setting those expectations in the beginning is a great way for me to help set boundaries.
So you're very good at it. Yeah. It sounds like it.
I know. I do think when you did ask me though about saying no, I'm like, I don't love to say no, but I think that people know who I am and don't push it.
Right. Wow. So you established that powerfully enough or empowering enough, so they respect that. So I'm wondering, for people who have not done that, established, even they have issues doing that, establishing their own space so other people don't invade them. What would you suggest to them, people who are listening now? I'm one of them, though. So,
Yeah, I think one thing that you have to know is what you can give and what you can accept first. I think that knowing your own boundaries is the first step in setting them with other people. So once you are aware and kind of can address those things for yourself, I think that, as I mentioned before, exposure therapy, I think that's simply setting them and setting the proper expectations for things is the best way to go. And of course, I don't ever recommend people being, forceful or aggressive. I can't imagine you would ever be that way from talking. People who are listening, the improper way to set a boundary is to force it upon somebody. You want somebody to understand you, to want to give you that boundary because they know that it's best for them and for you and for your relationship. So I would say just approaching everything with softness and kindness and understanding that this is the best for everybody is the best approach.
It's not just a belief system, but it's the way I navigate this reality in the sense of being naturally kind and just not forcing things to happen or not happen. So that's helpful.
I was going to say that nobody listens when they're being screamed at.
True.
Simply. So kindness is always the best way to get anything across.
What do you love most about being a woman, and what has been the greatest challenge for you?
I feel really powerful as a woman. That might be something ineffable or indescribable in some sense, but I feel a great sense of power. I feel an incredible sense of connectivity to the universe and our ability to, procreate, and, really foster life within us. I think that is something that is so magical. I don't know if there's any other word for me to use. But it's transcendent, it's magical. I think that a lot of feminine energies are beautiful qualities. And I think everybody's on a spectrum. I think the energies are a specific thing in themselves when you start gendering them. But I think that I feel a sense of community with women. I feel a safeness with women. I feel a kinship with women. And I think that unspoken bond or connectivity is something that you will, I feel like I will always have and will always be something that I can rely on. And I think that the biggest challenge being a woman, I would say personally, my biggest challenge in being in a female body is the pressures that are put upon women to look a certain way. I find my entire life I have been really, really impacted by societal pressures and the idea of, beauty, westernized beauty and what it means to have the perfect body or to be desired or to have men like you or want you or be sexualized. And, I think that sexual assault is a big part of that, something I also have experienced. And I think that the objectivity of a woman's body as something to either be conquered or commoditized or used, abused, changed. I think that is something that has really impacted me, like that idea that the outside male world can change our bodies, try and shape them a different way so we are a different way. And I think that is super damaging and super harmful for young girls and developing girls and women, throughout their lives.
And I'm wondering if this is getting any better. Do you see the change, the evolution of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's getting better. I have hope. I choose to be positive and hopeful about everything. But I actually do think things are changing. I think it started with the body positive movement, which I personally have some hangups with on my own. And I think for, a multitude of reasons, one of which is I think that it is so focused on positivity that it doesn't leave room for other emotions or feelings, which is really essential. You can't just accept the positivity without understanding the negative aspects of your emotions as well.
True.
And then I think there's a new movement called the body neutrality movement, which I actually really ascribe to, that attempts to place the importance of one, their worth on the body's achievements and accomplishments rather than the body itself.
Yeah.
And I think that seeing that wave of body activism has been really important to me in my journey. And then I also think, on a simple level, if you turn on the TV or you look in ads, you see different people, and that was never something that I saw growing up. There was a monolith. There was a monolith of what beauty was, and now there isn't, it's changing, and that is so important, and it's really, really pleasant to see, honestly.
Yeah. So it is changing. That's great news, right?
I think so. And it will continue to change. Issues. So, fat phobia, there's so many that have to do with a body. I mean, even, we're still fighting to we're still fighting to control our right to, have abortions and what we want to do with our own bodies. And that's our government. So there are fights to be had, but I see things going in a good direction.
Listening to you, what I think is control. That's what it's happening. It's all about forcing and trying to manipulate and control women in the way we express ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? That's what it is. I'm married and I see that in my husband, but it's not a direct thing. He has been influenced too by all this in a way that he doesn't even know what he's doing when he's asking me to have my hair in such a way or whatever he asks me to do. I noticed that he's not aware of these things. So do you believe that we can also try to make men around us more aware, even adults? Can they still change? Like my husband is 62, so I don't know how much he can change though, but I'm trying to, without trying too hard.
I think there's hope. I think of my father when I think of you saying that, my dad is 61. And he likes me to look a certain way, I think, on the general, but my mother too, so I do feel like he has changed though, but only, incrementally for sure, but only because he saw that what he was doing was hurting me. Right. And I think that if the person in your life is somebody who truly loves you, they won't ever do something that they know is hurting you or is going to impact you in a negative way. True. And I think that this is kind of goes back to the boundary talk that we just had, that the way to do that is, if my dad says, this is a silly example, but if he's like, you need to paint your nails or something like that, and I might say, hey dad, like I'm actually working and painting and getting my nails done doesn't really make any sense, but I don't really need you to tell me that. You know what I mean? I think that is I'm like, that might not be so graceful, but kind of like placing it down and saying that, like, thank you for your feedback, but this is how I feel. And, I appreciate you. Just it's kind of ending with, I appreciate you no matter what. Right. But if there's something that, of course, painting your nails is not something that's going to be hurtful. At least for me, it's not. Right. But if there really is something that hurts my feelings and I say that and I show the emotion, I think that is also key, is don't try and cover it with humor. If it really impacts you, don't try and cover it with humor or a joke, which I am prone to do. And my family is prone to do as well. Yeah. Really say that this bothered me and this is why. In the future, can you do this instead of that? Because then we won't have an issue or I won't be hurt. And the answer is always going to be yes. And I think that if you come to somebody who's not necessarily used to seeing the emotion or seeing a boundary be set, they're much more likely to be somewhat shocked by that, by someone coming to them in that way. True. That it will impact them so much more.
Just being truthful again, standing for what we believe in, what matters to us, and being vulnerable enough to and kind enough to say how we feel and what we want.
And I think that, It's also just about being truthful, as you said, to yourself, and that idea of not being somebody else's version of perfect. Because
Right.
if you're wearing your hair the way that maybe your husband wants you to wear your hair, then you're being his version, and that's not good for you or your growth. And there's no point.
Yeah, there's no point. Exactly. There's so much that we could talk about on this. I could go on,
Right.
yeah, giving you other examples, but the general message and the very powerful message is be yourself, be true to yourself, just be brave enough to stand for the things that are hurting you, basically. That's self-love. So it goes back to that. Thank you, Alex, because you are communicating not just with my audience, but myself too. Those boundaries, I have to be better at it. So we're almost at the end, but I want to mention some of the illustrations, the paintings that really caught my attention. I love A Woman's Place. That's,
Well, yeah.
oh, if you want to talk to me about the inspiration for that, that'll be amazing, because that's a beautiful painting.
I actually made that piece during the election, the ramp up to the election this year. So that was kind of when I was a little bit in a political space, doing a lot of political illustrations. But I think that's something, and I also was working with female run organizations trying to get the female vote for the Biden-Harris ticket. And I devoted a lot of time to that. And so I was focusing really on women and female power, and the idea that we're not what you tell us to be. We're not, our place is not in the kitchen. Our place is not, doing laundry. That's not our place. Our place is, what they say, in the resistance. Our place is here fighting for what's right, fighting for a better world. And that's what a woman's place is.
The women that I have in my life, the women that I talk to here, which is part of my life too, I see how beautiful they are. All about making this place a more peaceful place, more loving, peaceful reality. That's what women, not saying that men are not, because I interview a lot of men too, they're all about that. But more often than not, they're in touch with their feminine side when they're into these things, which is interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that, in our society, there are kind of like these personality traits that get pushed towards each gender, like power and hierarchy are pushed towards men, and strength, and women are nurturing and caring. But our society undervalues those characteristics, not only in a social construct, but also in a monetary construct. Like people who have those types of occupations are paid less than people with male attributes. And I think that's the idea, is that, women need to come together to make it not only a more equal place, but actually a more feminine place, because women want to take care, to nurture, to mother, to love. Women want, I don't love generalizing, so I want to take, everyone take this with a grain of salt, but, women are caring, and they want to love and make things better, and they're not fighting in general for power and dominance. We just want our children to live in a better place.
I talk to a lot of women who believe and have this vision that one of these days we'll see that happening. This shift.
We have our first female vice president, and that is government's getting more equal. Yeah. But, there's a lot of work to be done. But I have complete hope that it will be. There are so many incredible, titans, female titans right now that are out there trying to make things better, and it'll happen.
That voice, it helps as a reminder for all of us not to lose hope.
No, definitely not.
So we're almost at the end, Alex. Before I ask you my final questions, would you like to add anything?
Oh, no, it was just lovely talking to you and taking an hour out of my day to talk about emotions. I love it. It's so therapeutic and lovely.
I love your presence. I love your wisdom. I love your art. I love everything about you. And how genuine and natural you are, too.
Thank you. It's always nice to make new friends.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. What is another word for healing?
Oh, growth. That's what I think. I think I kind of center my life around evolving and always working to become the next version of you, the better version of you. And that is a process that, as we said, that has no end. And so I think that we're always healing, we're always growing, but it's important to be aware and I would say intentioned about it.
Yeah, and celebrating even the smallest growth step that we make, because I notice that we don't do that as often. Like we grow every day, like I see myself, but we don't stop to celebrate those steps that we have.
No, because they're not valued. It's not like, oh, it's not a promotion.
Right.
So don't celebrate it.
Right, right.
But it is a promotion, and that's the point.
It's something to be celebrated. Each step we take toward the growth that you speak of, creating this better space within for ourselves of inner peace that I believe in, and passing that on. To me, that's a beautiful thing to just to nurture every day, to do that moment by moment. And I noticed that I don't do that. So I guess you reminded me of that just now, to do that
You
more
reminded
often.
me too. It's hard to keep everything in mind all the time when you're going through work, but taking a moment every day to kind of recenter yourself and saying, oh, I'm on this journey of growth is important. Yeah.
And my last question to you, Alex, is what are 3 things about life you know for sure as of this moment?
You can't plan anything.
Yeah.
Well, you can try, but good luck with that.
Right.
Let me think. 3 things. So don't plan, or plan, but don't expect anything. Really all we have is the moment.
Right.
I think that probably goes with the planning hand in hand, that living in the moment and being mindful about experience and the actual experience of living and not getting caught in the past or the present, but enjoying the moment is what life is and what really truly experiencing life is. And then third, life without creativity is, to me, empty, meaningless. Art is the thing that makes us innately human. It makes us it is a thing that allows us to connect and empathize with others, feel others, understand others. And without art, I think humans would be nothing. To put it bluntly, I think humans would be nothing without the addition of the arts. So I would say that arts, are fundamental to being alive and being human.
I love that. And what comes to mind when you say that is just by responding to that natural being, that energy within ourselves that we know to be true, that's what it is. That becomes what you call creativity, art, just being new and in essence, right? In essence.
Your soul. Yeah, it's expressing your soul. And that is. And it's so powerful because it's something that, truly strips you away from your corporeal reality, the idea of actually inhabiting a body.
Right.
And to be able to access the intrinsic parts of your soul are incredible and so transformative if you allow it to be.
So thank you for doing that, allowing and being open to that essence, to that beautiful, magical energy to flow. That's what's happening. It's beautiful, incredibly beautiful. So before we say goodbye, Alex, I wanted to thank you again for this genuine and natural conversation, your wisdom, the work you do, attempting to help others, but coming from a place of helping yourself first and being yourself, which is very, very empowering, and everything in between that could be felt today.
Thank you so much.
Before we say goodbye, where can we find more information about you, your artwork and services, future projects?
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at _Alex Rudin, AlexRudin, or you can go to my portfolio page, which is alexrudin.com, or my shop, which is rudinstudios.com. And all of these are linked on my Instagram. So that's pretty much the place you want to go. If anybody wants to contact me about projects or anything like that, feel free to email me. My email address is linked to my Instagram as well. And in terms of upcoming stuff, I'm actually working on some really amazing projects. One of which is a collaboration with the Representation Project, which is an organization that deals with gender disparities and social constructs around, women and men, and also they make films, educational films that are really incredible. So I'm working with them to relaunch their merchandise site to get some really amazing merch. You can check back, probably within a month, we'll have some of that up. And then I'm also working on an educational series about aesthetic force and diversity, equity, and inclusion that is going to live in schools. So it's an educational project. And there's also a program that goes along with it that I would go to the schools and do this program with them and help them develop social justice artwork. So if there are any teachers out there who are interested, please reach out to me. And then I also have a show coming up at Jersey City Hall. It's like a 30-piece show, and the opening event, which is actually a whole shebang, is a big event. It's actually incorporates local charities from Jersey City and vendors, and we're gonna have this big event outside in the courtyard of Jersey City Hall for the show, and that is going to be on September 11th. Yeah, somewhere at night. So if people follow me on Instagram, there'll be tons of updates for all of these types of things coming forward. So lots of stuff in the works. Lots to follow up on, and I hope that you guys will, drop in on my Instagram and check out what I do.
Wonderful. I'll have the links on your podcast profile too. Thank you so much again, Alex. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Alex Rudin and her work, please visit rudinstudios.com and alexrudin.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.